Welcome to The Crooked Climb with Suzanne and Denise. Life and business are not linear. Let's get moving with honest, reliable, and unbiased information you can use to master life and business. We've all experienced life's ups and downs. In this show, Suzanne and Denise are committed to moving onward, upward, and most of all, learning from the biggest challenges we face in life and business. Join in the conversations with experts in their respective fields of health, wellness, personal development, fitness, and fun. And that's not all. Your path to self-mastery starts here. No climb is a straight line. Goals are achievable with clear targets. The ascent begins now.
All right, welcome everybody. Woohoo! Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Denise.
Friday. Woohoo. So hi everyone. Welcome to the Crooked Climb with Suzanne and Denise. I'm Denise of the two of us.
And I'm Suzanne. Welcome.
So today, let's talk about something that we all know is a problem for most of us, but we really don't talk about. So today, let's think about those holiday celebrations and hopefully coming soon, those barbecues or those buffets, or anytime, you're out at dinner and there's a lot of yummy, delicious food out there on the table or, on the menu, and you want to try everything. Problem is, are your eyes bigger than your stomach? You want to taste everything, but let's be real, you just don't have the space to eat it. And that really can wreak havoc on your diet, on your health and wellness, and let's be real, your waistline. So let's talk about this, Suze. We talk, a lot of times we talk about calories and calorie counting and carbs and all of this stuff, but there's more to it. So let's talk about portion size.
Yeah, really, this is such an interesting and controversial topic, from calorie counting to, ratio and, how many fats, how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbs are you eating? Or are you measuring your food? Are you tracking macros? Like there's so many different opinions.
Mm-hmm. And I actually have tried counting macros. I actually took a course and actually have a certification in how to do that. And I have to say, it's not that easy.
No, I've used an app for a long time that shows me what my ratios are and what vitamins I might be deficient in that day's food. So that lets me know kind of how to track what supplements I need to take. Mm-hmm. I won't say I'm consistent with it, but it really comes down to, I used to be quite the competitive athlete. And I notice with a lot of my clients who are working out, that drives up your appetite. And they're increasing those portion sizes to combat with that more active metabolism. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask the question today for our listeners to think about: are you eating like a professional athlete who's working out 4 to 6 hours a day, honing their craft? Or are you just feeling a little bit more hungry because you're not getting the right nutrients? And I think that's really key with, people that are busy working and you work out for an hour a day, even if you just go for a walk an hour a day. It's easy to forget how much you're actually eating portion wise. So I wanted to help people dial that in today. Mm-hmm. And fueling yourself as a competitive athlete really means something different than fueling yourself as just a regular person exercising every day. So 12,000 calories a day, it was rumored that Michael Phelps would eat when he was training for the Olympics. And I thought I was eating a lot at 4,000 calories a day. So I really got an eye opener there, that's for sure. And so many times people think more is more valuable, in the case of portion sizes.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as calories go, more is just more.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm wondering what your take is on that. As far as, do you notice your portions get bigger, Denise, when you're working out more?
They used to. They definitely used to. But I really, in the last few years, have really focused more on weighing my food and measuring it
Hmm.
because I was at that stage in life where, those extra few calories a day were really starting to add up. What I did notice, so Mark used to be a marathon runner. And he really was one of those people that he didn't eat a lot during the day, but he would eat at night. And so his portions were a lot bigger than mine should have been, because that was his main meal. So that's really when I started to pay attention, because he was running marathons, so he was burning a lot of calories. I was only running half marathons, but I was some days eating as much as he was. And so that
Well, but
really
he's a
kind of
man and he's bigger, and right? Like, so you
right.
weren't taking into consideration that he's a man,
Hmm.
so higher calorie burn, just if you
Hmm.
guys sat on the sofa next to each other all day.
He'd still burn more.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is just
Yeah,
the
I know.
world we live in.
Mhm. The
So that's
interesting thing.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Mark was kind of funny. Like, he would always, after a marathon, so he was usually really good. I mean, very regimented, um, about what he ate, even though it was mostly dinner time. But after a marathon, so he used to always joke, running, training for a marathon is the best thing you could do for your body. Running one could kill you.
Love
But
it.
what he would do, like, after the marathon, he wanted a hamburger, and the morning after, he would have like a big stack of pancakes. And it was the only time he'd ever eat them. And the reason being was because he had burned so many calories, and his body was so depleted of nutrition that his body required that. But that was after running a marathon. And so many people go, oh, sure, three, pancakes and some sausage, oh, and some eggs. That's great. That's a normal breakfast.
Hmm.
Yeah, at 4,000 calories.
Yeah.
So I think most of us, especially here in the US, we see a plate full of food, and that's value to us. Dollar wise, we're not really paying attention to what the value is, nutritionally.
Oh, well, I like that analogy. I mean, I think, my generation, our generation growing up, it
Mhm.
was finish all the food on your plate. There's
Absolutely.
starving children in Africa. Well,
I
my
know.
answer was send it to them then. I'm full. And
Yep.
I remember that fight when I was a kid. And, I promised when I became a mom, I wasn't going to do that.
Mhm.
I, whatever you ate on your plate once you were full, within reason, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't go have cake after not eating your dinner. Well, sometimes we have dessert for dinner, but that's a whole nother show. Um, and I think what we're missing here is that, if we value a big plate of food, right? How many times have you gone out to a restaurant and we get so excited when we have food to bring home? Like, we have a whole nother, I mean, there's restaurants out there now that you order one meal on the menu and
Mhm.
they give you a whole nother meal to take home with you.
Absolutely. Mark and I actually, when we go out to dinner, we order one meal and we split it between the two of us, and we're two grown adults.
Hmm. Yeah, that's how big the portions are. So let's talk a little bit about how many people every year are diagnosed with
Mhm.
being overweight and
Mhm.
have type 2 diabetes. How many people every year are
Mhm.
diagnosed with this? It's 1.5 million.
Wow.
And this is a completely reversible, with
Uh-huh.
diet and exercise changes,
Mhm.
condition.
Preventable. Let's put that in there
Oh,
too.
preventable.
Completely preventable. Type 2 diabetes, of course,
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
absolutely preventable.
Yes.
And I've got to a resource in here that I thought was really good, and we'll put that into the chat for everybody, because I think if you don't have diabetes or you haven't been diagnosed with diabetes, it's not you, and it won't be you,
Right.
and it's something that happens to somebody else. But if you're pushing 50 pounds overweight, guess what?
Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes is knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that is really over this last year and a half, as my business has grown, my to-do list has
Mhm.
grown. And, as I was thinking about that, I'm like, well, isn't that interesting that
Mhm.
as my business has grown, my to-do list has grown, and my portions, when I do eat, sometimes I'm skipping meals,
Which is not
when
good
I
either.
do eat, which isn't, yeah. And but those portions are bigger. And so that was really interesting aha
Mhm.
moment for me. And I'll be totally transparent. I've gained a lot of weight in the last 2 years. And I blame it on having a successful business, but that's really not true. What's really true is that I'm moving less
Mhm.
and eating more.
So
And
that was
what
going to be my
happens?
question. That was going to be my
Mhm.
question. So you're eating more when you're eating because you're skipping meals? And are you measuring? Are you actually paying
No.
attention because you're so busy?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a challenge for all of us. We get busy, we're not paying attention. A lot of us are home more often than we normally would be. So we're snacking, kind of
Yes.
grazing, and all of
Yeah.
those things count. If you open a bag
And
of
I
chips.
I will say that in 1 week, so it's been 1 week today
Mhm.
that I started measuring and recording everything again. So it's been 2 years since I did that.
Wow. Mhm.
I've lost 5 pounds this week.
Mhm.
And I have more energy. I'm less hungry because I'm actually eating the things that my body needs rather than I always ate healthy, don't get me wrong. I wasn't
Mhm.
eating
Mhm.
chips and ice cream and that kind of stuff, but I was going for the quicker solutions, and just making that change for 5 days
Mhm.
resulted in 5 pounds.
Well,
And
think about it. Even if every day for 7 days, if you
Mhm.
cut back the portion size, and it equals 100 calories.
Mhm.
If it's That's 700 calories that you've saved in a week that you really hadn't really been literally counting, saying, "Oh gosh, I have to save 700 calories." You just automatically saved it because you didn't eat it.
Correct. And if you're really looking at what you're eating,
Mhm.
that's and you're eating lean and green. I love
Mhm.
lean and green.
Yep.
You can eat so much more
Mhm.
for the same amount of calories.
Yeah.
So if you're hungry, if you're finding that your portions are huge,
Mhm.
let's eat foods that are nutrient dense
Mhm.
and calorie low in calories.
Yep.
And
So
if
guys,
if you
kick
need those,
the chips out of
yeah,
get rid of the chips.
darn, darn.
And the sugary drinks. And I think sometimes too, I say get rid of the chips, but so I bought a bag of multigrain chips the other day, and literally this bag will last me probably 2 weeks, because what I've gotten to the habit of, and I know some people are going to say, "Oh, that's kind of anal of you, Denise," but
Mhm.
if there's a portion is 10 chips, I take the 10 chips out and that's what I eat.
And you don't go
So
back for 10 more?
no, because
Really?
I put them back away. I
All
put them
right.
back in the pantry, and then now if it was cookies, which are like, I'm seriously, I could be Cookie Monster. Like if I could dye my
Yeah,
hair
see,
blue, I
that's
would
not
look
my
exactly
thing.
like Cookie Monster. If I
That's not
had
my
cookies
thing.
in the house, then no, I would take the 2 out, and then I would go back for more. So I guess that's another thing, to mention. If there's something that is really your kryptonite, don't keep it
Yeah.
in your house,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's been really important to remember,
Mm-hmm.
especially this last 5 days, because I have one growing boy and one
Mm-hmm.
really skinny man in this house who eats whatever he wants. And one of the things that was important for me to remember is that they have foods that aren't mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that area got a little gray for
Mm-hmm.
me over the past couple years.
Yeah.
So I really like the idea of dialing it in, being more present, bringing a little bit of mindfulness to the portions and seeing what a big difference that has made. And so 5 days of this now, I also did something with my business in the last 5 days. I delegated a huge amount of tasks to my assistant. And then I actually called somebody I know and I said, I need somebody to handle this division of my company. I need
Nice.
somebody to take over marketing, SEO, all of those tasks that I was kind of overseeing. And I know it's necessary for my clients and I know it's needed, right? But I can't be the one to do it for them if I'm going to function as their coach and advisor.
So streamlining
yes,
your business, and
yes.
so you're doing, so it does it. So, this is where, we talk about, life and business isn't linear and things really do go together. It's not separate. So
Well,
it'll
how
be
did that
interesting.
happen? Like I didn't plan that, right? But the awareness that I'm bringing to my personal habits, my food. So I'd love to challenge anybody who's listening just to be aware of what you're doing. So, take a breath while you're making your food and look at your portions. Don't just dive in mindlessly. And when you're looking at your business, take a look at your list of responsibilities. If you have a company with 5 divisions, like I do, you need to operate it like a CEO and not a scrambling mess.
Yep. So you talked about visualizing things here, so let's talk about that. How do you visualize? Like, what is a portion? We've all seen, it's the size of your palm, it's the size of this. But if you're visualizing, if you're actually stopping to pay attention and visualize, how
So
much is
I
too
would
much?
say
How do you do it?
grains more than the size of a baseball. And if you're a cereal eater like I used to be, a portion of cereal is a quarter cup. Well, if that's true, which I know it is, every time I poured a bowl of cereal, I was having 4 portions.
Yep.
Wow.
Because it tastes good. And yeah, I totally get it. Most of us will just fill the bowl and never pay attention to what is the actual portion size. So I think this is an important piece, and I've added to a resource for everybody to that I guess we'll post later. And it basically talks about portion size and, what to look for. Is it the size of I think I use the size of my fist for meat is the size of my fist. And I got a little fist. My husband's is twice that size. So for him, it's obviously double.
Yeah.
So let's think, what else, what are the tips? Let's talk tips.
Well,
what would be your number one tip?
Number one, if you can't hold it in one hand, you're eating too much of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
I eat a lot of berries. I eat apples. I eat grapes and that kind of fruit. Usually 1 or 2 servings a day. And it's never more than I can hold in one hand.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
So that's been super helpful for me.
Another thing you've said to me in the past is, we've talked about this in the past, is how big plates have gotten. I mean, a dinner plate is like, it's this big.
Yes.
When you shrink your plate.
I will say I'm back to my baby plate. And that helps me so much. It's just a mind trick, right? It helps you visualize a full plate, a full meal, right? And the plate is actually the size of a sandwich plate instead of a dinner plate.
Right.
And then I have a bowl for any side portion, like a side salad or an extra portion of vegetables, but nothing's allowed to go in that side bowl that has more calories than it takes to digest. So it's a free bowl of food.
Oh, I love that. That's a really good idea.
Spinach, peppers, celery, mushrooms, anything that takes more energy to digest than it has in it can go in that bowl. And if I'm still hungry after I finish my plate, I can have that bowl.
Ah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
And things like this are so easy to do at home when we are thoughtful about it. And as I mentioned earlier, I like to measure my food or weigh my food. It's just the way I like to do it. This way I don't have to count calories. But when you're out and about and you're eating out or you're traveling, when we travel again, and what do you eat when you're out? So what are the couple of things that you can do when you portion control when you're out? And we just talked about this earlier, is when you go out to share dinner. Mark and I share dinner all the time, and it's amazing. One meal for two people and we're both full. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend. And if you're at home and I have my background is food and beverage and cooking. I can cook for 10 people. It's still hard for me to cook for two people. So a lot of times I have to make sure, that we do the same thing. If I've cooked 6 pieces of chicken and they're big pieces of chicken, measure them, weigh them, and then we split them. So that portion control piece is important when you're out, but again, it's just as important when you're at your own house too. What about when
I think one of the things that's been helpful for me with portions out or at home is realizing that whatever is put on your plate, if it's by somebody else, it's typically a double portion. So I think eat half. And then second is to realize and bring a little bit of slow down and mindfulness to what you're doing. So I notice, like, even when we're here having this conversation, I'm excited, I'm passionate, I love what I'm talking about. I can feel myself.
Get excited.
Right?
I know.
Yeah, I get so excited. And dinner time, same thing, right? If I've made this delicious meal, I'm excited to eat it. Oh my God, it tastes so good. And if you just slow it down and take a nice breath over your food before you start, and plan
Smell
out how
it.
much you're going to eat. Yeah, smell it. Let all the other senses come in and appreciate how the food got to your table, and bring a little bit of mindfulness to each bite. My mom was crazy about her figure, and she told me, if you chew every bite of food 30 times, you'll never be fat.
It takes a long time and it helps to digest. Okay, here's another tip for that. Between bites, put your fork on the table, put your fork down. Because what happens, and I see Mark doing this sometimes, like he eats, he's eating like this rather. Where here I am, I take a bite and I put the fork down and I chew, probably not 30 times, but he'll be finished with his meal and I'm halfway there. And
yeah, that's my husband and I too. He's much slower, and he actually takes a break halfway through dinner, puts his fork down, has a sip of water. We'll have a conversation. Meanwhile, I'm still eating.
Maybe we needed to bring Dennis on this conversation for next time.
I think he's got secrets he doesn't even know he has, because he's 5'11", and his body fat level is super low. He has the body of a runner, even though he doesn't exercise. We just got into walking, and I think my aha moment was realizing that me at 5'3", I weighed the same as my 5'11" husband.
Yep. And again, it comes back to what we're eating and the portions. And so going back to a couple of tips real quick, because I know this is, and I said this earlier, this is a big one. Eating in front of the television. I'm sure your husband and your son do this, right? They've got the bag of chips and they're just eating. Where I said, I'll take the chips out and put it on the plate. So that's a big deal, because before you know it, the whole bag is gone.
Yeah.
Did your mom used to ever say to you when you were younger, don't eat that, don't eat at 4:00, you'll spoil your dinner, or 5:00, you'll spoil your dinner?
Yep.
Such a misconception. If you're hungry, it's one thing if you're just snacking for the sake of snacking, but if you're hungry and it's 5:00 and you eat at 6:30, go ahead and spoil that dinner. Have an apple. have some celery and carrots, but really make sure that, it's something that's nutritious. And again, an apple is like this size again of my fist. Couple of other things real quick. Beware of supersized packages. Like I was just at Costco today. The bags that are this big, you don't need those. And if you do get them, make sure that you are taking and portioning. And to me, I think really out of sight, out of mind. I know you do this. You have a cabinet that's separate. This is, Sean and Dennis's food. This is my food. And for me, like with the cookies, if I don't have them in the house, I'm not craving them.
Correct.
And I think that's really, really an important piece, because if it's there, know it's there. You may not want it, but it's there. And somehow the cookies are calling.
Absolutely. Well, we have to wrap up already. So I'm super excited. If you're listening, we're going to hop over into our breakout room and interact with our audience for questions. And we'll take this conversation a little deeper. Make sure that you check out the download that comes with this podcast. It's an awesome resource with all the tips that we gave today. And remember that every week there's another diet, fitness, or exercise tip, trick, magical, miracle cure. Let's remember, get back to basics, nourish, move, be. And next week on our show, we have a special guest joining us, functional movement expert Mark Malahusky. We have been friends since high school, so I'm super excited to bring him on our show and have a talk about functional movement and exercise as we get older, but even it's important in your 20s. So this is going to appeal to everyone. So I'm super excited for that. Make sure you join us next week here on The Crooked Climb.
Thank you for tuning in to The Crooked Climb with Suzanne and Denise. Life and business are not linear. Your go-to solution for honest, reliable, and unbiased information you can use to master your life and business. To connect with Suzanne, visit thetailoredconsultingagency.com. That's tailored, TAYLORD. And to connect with Denise, visit livinghealthylist.com.